Ever find yourself admiring those crazy detailed models of buildings? Like the ones architects use, you know?
Yeah.
It's wild, the work that goes into making those miniature worlds. And speaking of miniature worlds, that's what we're diving into today, a career as a recreation model maker.
Fun.
We're using this super comprehensive career guide from RoleCatcher as our, well, guide.
It's a great starting point. It really digs into what the job is like, day-to-day, career paths, skills, good stuff.
So what's a recreation model maker actually do all day? Big question first.
Basically, they bring ideas to life. But in miniature, think buildings, landscapes, vehicles, even characters, all incredibly detailed and miniaturized.
Right, and they use all sorts of materials too. I was reading in the guide about everything from wood and plastic to resins for 3D printing. Sounds like you need a real mix of artistic talent and technical know-how, huh?
Absolutely. The guide stresses that it's not just assembly, you're problem solving, thinking about design, turning a vision into a real 3D thing. Mini architects, in a way.
Makes sense. You'd need to understand scale, how materials work, all that. Not just being crafty, it's specialized.
Exactly. And speaking of what's needed, the guide does a nice job listing the pros and cons of this career. Good stuff to consider.
Yeah, like what?
Well, on the plus side, you've got the creative part, working with your hands, and some really cool, unique projects.
Those are awesome perks. But what about downsides? I think the guide mentioned something about the job market being tough.
True. It's something to be aware of. Like a lot of skilled trades these days, job security means building your reputation, always getting better at what you do.
So passion is key, but also being flexible, staying ahead of the game. Speaking of which, the whole specializations thing within model making blew my mind. I was looking at the top 3 the guide listed, and honestly, I figured it'd be all tiny buildings at the top.
What was it instead?
Design, 74%. Then, get this, engineering and tech came in second at 65%.
Wow, that's telling. It challenges the idea of model making being just a hands-on craft. Technology, especially 3D printing, has opened up a whole new side to the field.
Totally. I mean, imagine making a model of a new gadget or even a prototype for, like, a medical device. That takes different skills than building a tiny dollhouse, right?
Big time. And it shows how diverse the opportunities are. You could specialize in architecture, historical stuff for museums, even miniatures for tabletop gaming, which is huge right now. That helps with the whole limited jobs concern because there are niches where model makers are in demand.
Right, finding your thing, like in any creative field. So, the guide also went into the stages of a model-making career. Interesting that even senior roles emphasize constantly learning.
And that's where RoleCatcher's other resources shine. They've got tools for staying competitive, but we'll get into that later. Important now is WHY is that constant learning so vital here.
Is it all the tech stuff we were just talking about?
Huge part of it, like 3D printing. It used to be for basic prototypes. Now, model makers use software like ZBrush to sculpt these crazy detailed designs digitally. Then it's printed super high res with different materials, photopolymer resins, all that. To be at the top of your game, you got to learn this new tech. Make it part of your process.
It's not just knowing the old ways anymore. You've got to be techie on top of the new software and stuff.
Exactly. And that's where a platform like RoleCatcher can be super helpful. They've got this AI thing for practicing interviews that I thought was pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, the guide mentioned that. You practice answering those typical interview questions, and their AI tells you how you're doing. Like, if you're clear, if you're getting your skills across.
Yeah.
That's got to be useful these days.
It's huge. Anything to give you an edge, right? And beyond the tech, there's something else in the guide. I think you'll find handy a list of alternative titles. Basically, jobs that might not say recreation model maker, but need a lot of the same skills. Opens up options.
Smart. I remember that. It had things like, what was it, antique, furniture reproducer, furniture restorer, stuff like that. Didn't quite click with model making in my head at first, I'll admit.
Might seem like a stretch, but think about the skills themselves. Both need an eye for detail, being good with your hands, knowing how materials behave. It's all connected.
Now that you say it, yeah, I can see it. Same problem solving, same artistry, just maybe different sizes is all.
Exactly. And checking out these other paths is good for a few reasons. One, it gives you a wider view of the job scene. Maybe there are more antique restoration jobs where you live, or the pay is better. Who knows?
Even if you're dead set on model making, having those comparisons helps you see what you're worth.
For sure. More you know, the better. Plus, you never know. Looking at those other titles might spark something you hadn't thought of.
True. Could be a whole niche you didn't even know existed. And speaking of, the guide ended on this thought-provoking question about the whole future of model making. Nice way to wrap it all up.
What was the question? I'm curious now.
They asked if all this 3D printing means handcrafted models are going to go extinct. Like, is that it for the old ways? It's a debate, isn't it?
Definitely. A lot of creative fields are dealing with that as tech gets crazier and crazier.
On the one hand, you have 3D printing being so fast, so precise,
Yeah.
hard to beat that the old way. But then there's something about that human touch. It's like warmer, more personality.
It's like one's a perfect copy, the other's got a story behind it. Those little imperfections, they make it real.
Exactly. So someone starting out now, what should they focus on? The high-tech stuff or getting good at the traditional skills?
I'd say, like a lot of things, it's finding the middle ground. Not one or the other, but how to use both well. Could use 3D printing for the hard parts, then do the detail by hand. Weathering, aging, all that, to make it look really real.
So tech isn't the enemy. It's like a new tool in the tool box.
Exactly. That's what makes it exciting. So much change, so much possible. People who can do both, the old and the new, they'll be the ones doing well.
It's like they say, future belongs to those who, what is it, believe in their dreams. Except here, it's believing in making these awesome miniature things.
Right. And hey, maybe someday we'll be looking at your model, amazed at how you blended the old ways with the new tech to make something amazing.
Love that. So to wrap this all up, if you're the type who loves detail, making little worlds come to life, recreation model making could be your thing, tons of creativity, skill, always something new.
And don't forget, resources like that RoleCatcher guide, great place to begin. But dig deeper, check out those other jobs, and most important, never stop learning.
Find your place in the world of tiny creations. Maybe you'll inspire the next generation to dream big, but build small. Happy building, everyone.